Hello again, welcome back everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. I am Jess, I run this channel and I make videos about dog photography. Today's video is going to be all about how to take sharp photographs of dogs in action. Now, I'm not sure if you have the same issues that most people do have in that they can't get a sharp action picture of a dog, but if that is you, then don't worry, you're in the right place. We're going to cover that today, so stick with me. Let's get stuck in. First things first, as always, please press the subscribe button and click on the bell icon. The bell icon helps you out because it gives you a notification every single time I upload a video. I upload every week and sometimes more than that if I feel like it. I appreciate audience participation, so please do leave a comment, like this video, and do other stuff that is engaging. We also have a Facebook group that people are in. Like I said in a previous video, it is quite busy for me at the moment in this lockdown period. It went really quiet and then it went a bit mad. So yeah, I'm just trying to record as many of these videos for you guys as I can in the time that I have. I cut my hair the other day because there's no hairdressers, so what's a girl to do? And I hope it doesn't look completely ridiculous. There was no layers, there is now lots of layers and I like it. Do you? I'm going to split this video up into 3 chunks which have all of the information that you're going to need. Make sure you watch all 3 of them. So the first one is hit rates, the second is settings, and the third is the shoot. Really, all of this is theory and practice. So the first thing that I want to discuss super quickly is hit rate. So I personally believe that there is a certain rate of shots that you can get in focus based on the equipment that you have, your skill, and the settings that you use. We're gonna cover off settings in just a sec, but really what this section is all about is about the equipment. So I'm not gonna tell you to go out and buy a £5,000 or dollar camera. Similarly, I'm not going to tell you to go out and buy a £3,000 lens either, because that's not realistic for the vast majority of people. So what I want to just explain to you guys is that although other people may have a super high hit rate, i.e. they get most of their pictures in focus, that doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to be able to match that because of the equipment that you're using. However, you can get there with practice and the settings that you use to a certain extent. If you have an entry-level camera, you're going to struggle to a certain extent to be able to capture action with a high hit rate. There's going to be some gaps there, and the same goes for using third-party lenses or slower lenses. If you want to shoot action and have pretty much every shot that you get in focus, you're going to need a really good body, a good camera body, which has brilliant autofocus capabilities, and you're also going to need a fast lens. By fast lens, I just mean that the sections of the lens move quickly enough to be able to change focus planes very quickly, but also I mean that it goes down to a low f number, a wide aperture, and that aperture is fixed across the zoom lens, i.e. a 70 to 200 to 2.8. You just want to make sure that the camera that you're using has got good autofocus set up in it. I will be going through some of the different camera settings that we're going to be using, but I'm not going to go through different camera bodies. And finally, the last thing that's going to help you with your hit rate is shooting in good light. So the better the light is, you're going to have a better chance of letting that camera pick up the autofocus of the subject as they're moving. So just bear in mind that you want to be in good light when you are working on this. Don't shoot action indoors on an evening, because that's not going to help anybody. To make your action pictures look better, once you've nailed the different sections of this video, you want to make sure that you're using a low f number for the work that you're doing. For example, if you're going to shoot in a field, a dog running towards you at full speed, you're not going to want to be on f5, f6, f8, whatever. You're going to want to be as low down on the f number as possible so that you can blur out everything in the background. Does that make sense? So moving on to section 2 of this video, so we're going to cover the settings. There are many different ways to shoot action, many different settings that you can use. However, I personally believe that these settings that I'm about to run through with you are kind of like the basics. So you want to really get used to using these, nail them before you use any other action settings. And that's something that's really important because everybody has their own way of shooting action and nobody's way is particularly better or worse. What you can do is just make sure that you are nailing the basic fundamentals. And I think if you can shoot with the settings that I'm going to go through with you today, and do really well and practice and get good at it, you will nail pretty much every action picture you're ever asked to take. That's a big claim. I'm aware that that is a big claim, but I trust you guys to put what I say into practice and make it work. So the first thing that we're going to go through is the focus modes, and I'm going to split these into 3 distinct brands. We've got Nikon, Sony and Canon. I'm going to do it in Nikon, Canon and Sony though, that order, because that works best. So on a Nikon camera, you're going to want to be on AFC, that is autofocus continuous. So AFC, make sure that you can find that on your camera. If you're not sure, just find it in the manual. The manual will talk you through how to set that up on your camera. In a Canon, we're going to want to be on AI servo, that is continuous focus mode on a Canon. So AI servo, make sure that you've got that set up. And on a Sony, you're going to want to be on AFC again. So they're the same, autofocus continuous. When you've got that sorted, let's move on to the focus area. So the focus area essentially is where in that frame the camera is going to pick the focus, and most cameras will have some form of automatic focus setting, others will have a semi-automatic focus setting, some will have tracking settings, but every single one of them has the setting that we're going to discuss today, which is the single point. So using a single point or spot focus mode basically means that you get a little point that you can move around the screen and put wherever you want, and then the focus will only track what is in that point. So in a situation where you've got a dog running straight towards you, you would just keep that point on that dog's head and track the dog with your hand as the dog comes towards you. If you're panning, so you've got a dog moving sideways, you would just make sure that that point locked onto the dog, and then you, with your camera, followed the dog as it went across the screen. That is pretty much all there is to it. We use point focus because it trains you to be extremely accurate in where you're placing the focus and how you're tracking it. So there is an element of hit and miss, because as you're practicing, you're not going to be able to track the dog particularly well. However, with some practice, you become extremely good at it. On a Nikon and on a Canon camera, you're going to want to be looking for single point mode. So single point is that single shot. Go and try and find it in your manual. And if you're on a Sony, you're going to want to be looking for flexible spot. Flexible spot is the same thing, just in a different camera make. It's not really any different at all. And you want to choose the smallest option on a Sony camera. That really is the basic settings for capturing action. However, there are a few other things that will help you out and improve your hit rate. And those things go into 3 different groups, I guess. So the first thing that can help with your hit rate is using back button focus. You probably will have heard of back button focus at some point or another within your photography journey. Essentially, it means that you allocate a button on the back of the camera body itself to be your focus activation. So that leaves the trigger, the shutter button, to be used just to take the picture. That can help you out because it means that you don't have to refocus all the time to recompose. You can track your focus and then just shoot when you want to. It just makes it a lot simpler and a lot quicker. It takes a bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, you will never go back. I can promise. I feel like that was a big promise. Okay, so the next setting is pretty much specific to Nikon cameras. However, there may be an alternative within your cameras, and this is very important. So please do take note and check your camera settings with this one. So focus tracking with lock on is a really good piece of kit within Nikon cameras, but as standard, focus tracking with lock on is set to be kind of default. Default settings don't work very well for dogs or any form of fast moving subject, to be honest. So you're going to want to go into your camera settings and use your manual to find it, and you are looking for focus tracking with lock on. You are looking for focus tracking with lock on, and within that you've got 2 options usually on a Nikon camera. They are blocked shot AF and subject motion. So blocked shot AF has a number scale. What you want to do is move that point to 1. So either 1 or 2, depending on how good you are at tracking the dog within the lens and within the frame of the picture. What this does essentially is you are making the autofocus system quicker in terms of how quickly it refocuses within the scene. And this is great, but also bad. It's good because it means if you can hold your focus in the right place at the right time for the right duration on the dog, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a high hit rate. It is bad because if you go slightly off of the dog, the camera will immediately refocus on whatever's in the background. So just bear that in mind, get really good at it. But for now, set it at 1 or 2. The second point is subject motion, and we're going to want to set this to erratic because dogs are a bit erratic, and that again will help to speed up the autofocus responsivity within the camera. I hope that makes sense. Please do try those settings, especially if you shoot with a Nikon camera. With a Sony camera, you're going to want to use the IAF tracking, brilliant piece of kit, and yeah, use that, have a practice and see the results that you get from that. Okay, so that wraps up the settings portion of this video. So the last thing, the only thing left to do is to shoot. To shoot action pictures, you're going to want to do a few things. So first of all, you're going to want to set up based on the environment and the light available. We want to be using manual mode where possible because it gives you the most control over the final image. If you're not used to using manual mode, please do watch the exposure triangle video, which I will link above. If you're fine with using manual, just make sure your exposure is set when you head out. All that's left to do really now is to test our settings. So you want to make sure that your autofocus setting is on a continuous mode, either AFC or AI servo for the models that we've gone through today. So the next point is to make sure that you've got your focus point, that single point, in an area of the frame which works well for the environment and the composition, and then you want to make sure that that point is on the dog as the dog is moving. You want to make sure that it stays on the dog. That's probably the most important thing. Once you've got set up, your settings are perfect and you are ready to go ahead, you want to make sure that you wait to take the shot. What do I mean by wait? Well, guys, by wait I mean don't spray and pray. Spray and pray is a method of photographing action where you just press the shutter and let it reel off a load of pictures. But what that absolutely does not do is improve your skill and ability to take good action pictures. So you really want to make sure that you are holding fire and hold on to it until the last possible moment before you press the button. And then really you only want to let off between 1 and 3 shots, never more. If you look back at your pictures and the dog looks a million miles away, then you shot too soon and you need to hang fire for a little bit longer. It takes a while to get a steady hand on that shutter button, but it does make a big difference and it pays dividends for the final images. And the final point to note when you're shooting with the settings that we've explained today is to make sure that with your hands, you're following the movement of the dog. A dog's stride pattern tends to go up and down. It undulates slightly as they're moving at speed. So you want to make sure that you're compensating for that by also moving in the same way so that that focus point really does stay on the head of the dog. So you just want to make sure that you practice with as many different dogs as possible doing these things. Pretty much that encompasses and covers everything that we need to go through today in terms of photographing dogs in action. It will apply to any form of action photography that you're shooting with today. So just give it a go, have a practice and let me know the results.